Social media has given people a way to communicate and express their thoughts and experiences. One Alberta man started a podcast and social media page called The Angry Albertan. Joshua Switzer-Crow joined me earlier this week via Zoom from Edmonton to talk about his online mission. Joshua, your page has grown to over 60,000 followers in just a year and a half. So that's like tremendous organic growth. So for anyone who hasn't heard of you, what's the focus of your podcast and of your page, The Angry Albertan?
Well, it didn't start as a podcast. It started as a protest movement. So we've been protesting at the legislature grounds basically every Saturday since April 29th, 2020. So we've been out there for, a year and 3/4 or whatever it is now. The podcast grew out of that. And the whole point of the thing, honestly, I thought we'd just be able to, I'm a self-employed business person. My business was dramatically affected at the beginning of the lockdowns. And I thought, geez, we could just knock this out with a few protests, get everything back to normal because, I was scared to death of this pandemic when I first saw it on the horizon in December of 2019. Both my wife and I were worried about it. And we were tracking it, running our own numbers all the way through. And, by February, we were just like, I don't think this is it. This isn't as big as they're claiming it's going to be. But the restrictions just kept getting more and more restrictive, and the panic just kept increasing by every minute of every day. They were just pushing more fear at us. Yeah. And I wasn't seeing anything in the public sphere that was countering this narrative of fear. So that's why I jumped in and started up the Angry Albertan page. It was a bit of a process to get there. The Angry Albertan didn't actually exist until May of 2020, but we had been out there protesting for a couple of months before that. And it's just a means to get information out to the public that doesn't have to go through the censors of the mainstream media and our government to get out there.
You said your business was affected. What did you do? What was your business?
I'm a nobody. I'm a local piano tuner, so I make your pianos sound beautiful. I tune for all sorts of churches. And I used to claim that I tuned for the education department at the University of Alberta, but I got an email from them saying I'm not even allowed on the property anymore because I am not double vaccinated. But I still tune in clients' homes without a mask. I'm mask exempt. That's still probably costing me business, but it's actually gained me business as well because a lot of people aren't comfortable with masked men in their homes.
What were you expecting when you started the page and the podcast? Did you think it was going to grow like this?
I hoped it would grow. I knew there would be growth. I didn't think it would get as big as it's gotten. I've never done anything like this. Like I say, I'm a nobody. I'm the last person you would ever expect to have, their own podcast and, thousands of people watching. We've had videos get 1.5 million views. We've had a couple of videos get over 1 million views. So that's insane. So I'm quite recognizable. I joke, I say I'm the most hated man in Alberta. That's often how I introduce myself now. And because in the beginning of this, people were threatening to burn down my house. I saw Dr. Joe Vipond whining because there were people threatening to protest outside of his house. And he was taking that as a big threat to his safety. Well, Dr. Joe, come check out my pile of death threats someday.
Oh, I can imagine. So obviously what you're doing has impacted a lot of people, some in positive ways, some in not so positive ways. Have you received any feedback from the government about this, especially since you still go to the legislature every Saturday to protest? What are they saying?
Well, in the beginning of this, Jason Kenney really seemed to care what people thought. He would actually respond to our actions directly. I organized a call-in campaign where we clogged up his phone lines for a couple of weeks. Like if you wanted to get to his receptionist, you would wait on hold for 3 or 4 hours. Oh. And so we knew he was listening. He even mentioned me in one of his live streams, his media availabilities. There are some angry pages on Facebook that would have you believe. So I know he watches and I know he pays attention. But lately he has been doing his very best to pretend that we don't exist.
What advice would you give to Albertans and what advice would you give to the government? They say that healthcare resources are stretched too thin. So what would you say to them as a path forward?
We need to stay credible. We can't let the crazies get in front of this and demand civil war and all this crazy stuff. There is a peaceful way out of this. Our government has checks and balances. It's a scale. They've tipped that scale one way. It is our job to tip it the other way.